At the very latest on the Russia investigation from the ranking Democrat of the House Intelligence Committee, California Congressman Adam Schiff is joining us now live from Los Angeles. Congressman, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Wolf. Good to be with you.
All right, we have a lot to discuss, but first let me get your reaction. We've been reporting, as you know, that investigators are looking into whether the Attorney General of the United States, Jeff Sessions, had another private meeting with the Russian ambassador during the campaign that had not been disclosed. 2 U.S. senators have written letters asking for an investigation of Sessions and a possible perjury probe. What's your reaction to that?
Well, my reaction is, again, we have allegations this time involving the Attorney General that there were undisclosed meetings with the Russians. If these allegations prove to be correct, they would be very serious because, after all, he failed to disclose his meetings with the Russian ambassador when he testified. He then, when he was called on it, supplemented his testimony. If that supplemental testimony still wasn't accurate and there were additional meetings or an additional meeting, and again, this is just an allegation, that would be a very serious business because that would indicating a very knowing desire to conceal information from the Senate and potentially provide false testimony. So that is an enormously serious charge that, if accurate, will need to be investigated.
Is your committee looking into that as well?
I can't comment on what our committee is looking into. I can't go into that level of specifics. All I can tell you is that if this allegation were to be accurate, it would be something that would be of profound concern to our committee, as I'm sure it would be to the Senate Judiciary Committee.
What can you tell us, Congressman, about the subpoenas issued by your committee in the Russia probe? First of all, have you had any direct response yet?
No, we have not had a direct response yet. Excuse me, Wolf.
Go ahead. I don't know if you have any water there, but if you have some water, you can have some water. Tell us about the subpoenas. I know you're issuing them, but have they actually been delivered?
We sent out the subpoenas yesterday. I assume that they have already been received, but we haven't gotten any response yet. I expect it'll be a bit of time before we do, particularly for Michael Cohen. Mr. Flynn had already received a like process from the Senate, so I would expect that we're likely to hear back from him in a shorter order than we will from Mr. Cohen.
All right, so you got 4 subpoenas that you and the Republican Congressman Conaway, who are in charge of this Russia investigation, you put forward, 1 for Michael Cohen, 1 for Michael Flynn. Who are the other 2 for?
Well, we sent out subpoenas both to the persons as well as their businesses. So that constituted the 4 subpoenas pertinent to the Russia investigation. As your reporters have already covered, the chairman, acting on his own initiative and without consultation with the minority, has sent out subpoenas apparently to 3 of the intelligence agencies seeking documents. That is obviously a concern that that's being done without consultation with the minority. Apparently, the White House wishes to push away from the Russia investigation and direct attention in other places, and unmasking is apparently where the White House wants that attention directed. But I think Mr. Conaway and I are going to make sure that we're not distracted by this, and we're going to keep our focus on getting the Russia investigation done right.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about what the chairman, he's still the chairman of the committee, Devin Nunes, has done. The subpoenas issued by the chairman focus on what's called unmasking, the identification of U.S. citizens picked up during the surveillance of foreign nationals. As you know, President Obama's national security advisor, Susan Rice, the former CIA director, John Brennan, the former U.S. ambassador to the UN, Samantha Power, they apparently are the focus of those 3 subpoenas that have been issued or about to be issued by Devin Nunes. Were they appropriate?
Well, I don't know what the chairman has in mind here, again, because we weren't consulted, or why the chairman is picking these 3 people apart from the fact that they were part of the Obama administration. Susan Rice has been a perennial target for the GOP for whatever reason. But again, we have very little insight into what the chairman is doing here. And I think the only guidance we can get is that we hear coming out of the White House, and this is what the White House wants to see happen. They'd rather be talking about these issues. Again, the intelligence agencies have been cooperating with us. We do oversight all the time of issues of unmasking and minimization. So I'm not sure why there was a necessity to issue subpoenas to agencies that are already working with us, unless the goal was simply to get publicity or perhaps obscure the subpoenas that were going out in a bipartisan way that are focused on the Russia issues and the Russia investigation.
You may have seen the president's tweet earlier this morning. He tweeted that the big story is the unmasking and surveillance of people that took place during the Obama administration. Clearly, he and Devin Nunes are on the same page right now. I thought Devin Nunes had removed himself from the Russia investigation. Is this part of the Russia investigation?
Well, clearly the president thinks it's related to the Russia investigation, or at least a way to distract from the investigation. There are a couple issues here. One is that the chairman is still insisting on having the final say in subpoenas that go out in the Russia investigation. That, to me, I think is a violation of his commitment to recuse or step aside from this probe. The committee rules allow that authority to be delegated to Mr. Conaway in consultation with myself. That's what should happen here. I hope the Speaker will intervene and make sure it does happen here. But then there's a separate question about the whole unmasking issue and whether this is simply being used as a way of distracting from the Russia probe. Again, if there's a problem getting information from the agencies, I'm not aware of it. That problem hasn't been shared with us. The necessity of subpoenas hasn't been shared with us. And I guess, have to conclude that this is part of the White House effort to direct attention in another direction.
Have you spoken to the Speaker, Paul Ryan, about this?
I've spoken to the Speaker about the investigation. I certainly tried to make the case for why an independent commission would be desirable here. Obviously, I haven't been successful in that. I know there are top-level conversations going on between the Democratic leadership and the Speaker about this. He's certainly aware of the problem, but this is now becoming a pattern within the Russia investigation. You have the same issue now with the Attorney General. I'm not referring to this potential additional meeting, but rather the Attorney General also committed to recuse himself from involvement in decisions affecting the Russia probe, only to write a recommendation that the head cop, Jim Comey, be fired and replaced when he was conducting that investigation. So I think we're seeing a pattern here of people saying they're going to recuse themselves but not fully recuse themselves. We're seeing a pattern also of meetings potentially taking place that are not disclosed or are concealed. A lot of allegations in that category that really bear investigation.
A spokesperson for the chairman, Devin Nunes, says he never formally recused himself. They're not using the word recuse. Do you buy that?
I don't buy that, and here's the thing. Whether you call it a recusal or a step aside, and I don't really understand what the difference is, the public was given the assurance he wouldn't be making decisions in the Russia investigation. And the question is he making decisions in that investigation? And plainly, if he is insisting on being the last word in whether a subpoena can be issued to compel documents or testimony on the Russia investigation, then he hasn't either fully stepped aside or recused himself. So I care less about what the committee Republicans want to call it, what the chairman wants to call it. I care more about, does it have a practical impact on the conduct of the investigation? The subpoenas that Mr. Conaway and I want to go out have gone out. That needs to continue. But there shouldn't be any check that we need, any box checked or any signature from someone who has stepped aside or recused themselves from making decisions when we need to send out subpoenas in this investigation.
I know you got to run, but very quickly, one final question. What do you hope to hear a week from today when the fired FBI Director James Comey appears in public before the Senate Intelligence Committee?
Well, I'm glad that he's testifying. I think it's very important, and it's very important that this be done publicly. And of course, we want to know, did the president attempt to curtail the Russia investigation in any way, shape, or form, with respect to his own conduct of it, with respect to the investigation involving Michael Flynn? Did he demand loyalty from the director, which would be completely inappropriate? Did he interfere or obstruct in any way? That's really what we need to know from the director of the FBI. I think there is no legitimate claim of executive privilege here. To the degree there ever was one, the president has waived it by talking about the reasons that he fired Director Comey. And what's more, when there are allegations of potential wrongdoing, that's a privilege that is waived. So I fully expect that he'll be able to testify to all of these issues. And I think the fact that Mr. Mueller, about the contents of that testimony, as it says about confidence that Director Comey will be able to testify accurately, whether it's in this proceeding or subsequent proceedings. There won't be inconsistencies, and I think that confidence is well placed here.
Congressman Adam Schiff, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Wolf.